Hello and welcome back in a still very empty and deserted ICA headquarters here in Amsterdam. My name is Gerrit Heikoop and this is the third part of an interactive online afternoon, the interactive webinars ICA Global Conversation on Current Challenges. We talked about crisis communication, learned some practical tips there. We just shared very different perspectives from all the different perspectives in the international meetings industry. And in this third block, we'll dip our toes into online meetings as an alternative for face-to-face meetings that are currently obviously not taking place. The aim is not to provide you with all the answers there are. This is a very broad topic. The aim is also not to give you a one-size-fits-all solution. Our aim this afternoon is to get the conversation started, to allow you to get some thinking models of how you can further educate yourself in this world of virtual meetings, and to make sure that from here on you can grow further, you can be creative, and you can come out of this as strong as you can. But before that, it's important, just like with every other block, that we get this sense of being in this together. So if you're joining us for the first time, either here on the ICA World website or on Facebook, make sure you pull out the second screen, open up your mobile or open up a new window, go to slido.com and enter the event code ICA Global Conversations, and I'll hit that poll again where we quickly get an understanding of who we have in the room, in our virtual room here together, and get an understanding how much of a global crowd we have. And throughout the afternoon, a lot of people have also been using the question/chat module in this same Slido interface to also give us shout outs from all over the world, and that's very nice and very also exciting to see that we truly are gathering a global crowd. Let's see, some of the people are filling this in. We still have a large body, about 2/3 joining us from Europe. We're later in the afternoon here in Europe, so hopefully good morning to those of you in the Americas. And I'll quickly see the votes going in. I'm always curious to learn which sectors people are joining us from. We still have quite a few people, or quite a lot of people from associations, but more and more people from the meetings management sector. So professional conference organizers and suppliers in that sector as well. Destination marketing, also still a lot of people. And I'm curious to see how much of a sticky audience do we have. We see that about 94% of you has also been joining us throughout the afternoon. So for those of you, welcome back. Thank you for staying. And if you haven't taken that opportunity, maybe now is a nice time to also use that hashtag ICA Global Conversations to share a little bit of where you're watching us from and post a picture to either Instagram or Twitter. We saw a few people doing that. Marta Gomez is doing that from France. And other than that, I'm not seeing a lot of photos yet. So use the opportunity to share a picture with hashtag ICA Global Conversations and show us where you're joining us from. That would be nice. Nastasia Tardo is also just sharing that. Thank you, Nastasia. Thank you for doing that as well. Now, having said that, I'd like to kick off this third block like I did with the other two blocks with the Chief Executive of ICA, Senthil Gopinath. I hope you're still joining us as well. And I'll give the floor to you for an official word of welcome.
Yep, a warm welcome to all of them who are joined us. And I'm sincere thanks to, it's amazing to see 94% of all of you are still with us. That's great. That shows the ICA family togetherness and supporting in these difficult times. Again, yeah, let's collaborate together. I'm sure we have fantastic panelists today again on this session. Annalisa, Philippe, and Dalia, I'm sure they'll share great thought process of what they are in their part of the world and what they are doing in these challenging times. So stay tuned, listen, of course, very important, contribute a lot because that's very important. Ask your questions. Let's move on. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senthil. And like with the first and the second block, I would like to invite all our viewers to do some homework. And this is actually a best practice that I learned last night from one of our panelists on this panel. Take out your notes, either digitally or on paper, and scribe your key takeaways during the session, because at the end, I will activate the next Slido poll where we will collect all your insights, all your collective brain power, and use that to share that together with the recordings of this online online event on the ICA Knowledge Hub. So with no further ado, let's introduce our panelists here today with us. We have from France, Philippe Riga, who is the Executive Director of EAO, the European Association for Osseointegration, who have quite some experience with including online audiences in their physical meetings, still going on, but we'll learn more about that later. Philippe, you're in France, a country severely in lockdown. Can you describe to us where are you and what is it like over there?
Yes, we are in France. Everything is locked down, of course, just like in many countries in Europe. And so we hope that it won't be too long for sure. And let's continue preparing things and hope that it will be soon much better. So hello, everybody, and hope to see you soon, not only virtually, but physically.
Yes, thank you, Philippe. We'll be looking forward to your story a little later on. Sitting virtually next to you is Annalisa Ponkia, who I came to know as the Executive Director of ESOT, the European Society for Organ Transplantation, but is now for a while already the Director of Innovation and Customer Experience at AIM International, a large international professional conference organizer. Annalisa, good afternoon to you as well.
Good afternoon, Harry. I hope you're well.
We hear you very softly. We're pushing some buttons to see if we can increase your sound a little bit. You are in Padova, which is the north of Italy, which is, at least from a European perspective, the hardest hit area in terms of COVID-19. What is it like to be in the north of Italy at the moment?
Particularly in Italy and in the region where I'm located, we were hardly affected by this pandemic. But I have to say we are reacting well. We've been working from home now since more than 2 weeks. Prevently, our headquarters in Milan shut down and put the people in position to work nice and easily from home. So I have to say we are quite well organized. We are more connected than ever. I have to say we are so busy in all these conference calls and keeping all together with our clients. We try to be connected with them, with colleagues. And so it's quite intensive, I have to say. It will be strange to go back to the old normal.
Exactly. And just easily share a cup of coffee with colleagues for 10, 15 minutes without being in the next call, right? Yes. Well, thank you for being with us. We're glad to see that you're safe and sound after all the images we see from that area. And we're looking forward to hear from you a little bit later about some of the strategic thinking that you're putting into virtualizing events. I spoke with you about that earlier this week, and I would like to share that later in this block as well. Our third panelist on this panel is Dalia El-Ghazar, who is a idea igniter and a tech evangelist for her agency Dalia Plus, based in the United States. Dalia, where are you right now and what is it like over there?
I am in Boston, Mass, in my bedroom, trying to get away from my kids at the moment. So, and the dog, I'll be very honest. I think it's one thing that we need to be prepared. We were not prepared for this. We actually, here at my house, we put ourselves in lockdown a week ago, just seeing what everything's happening in the world. We sort of tried to be proactive.
Okay.
I have never had so many Zoom calls and conference calls back to back as I have had in the last 10 days about virtual events. So thank you for having me on this webinar.
Yes, and thank you for finding the time. Obviously, we have you with us also when at the end of this block, we'll try to answer as much of the questions as we can. And that's where I need you, my virtual audience, because we see a lot of questions coming in throughout the chat. And by voting up, providing the likes, you're going to determine which of the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions that we're going to address to this panel at the end of this block as well. So keep doing that while you're at it. Well, thank you, Dalia, and we'll be checking in with you soon. Because for the first part of this block, I'd like to kick off myself. As you can see, we're running an online event here as well, and I'd like to take 5 minutes or so to instill some strategic thinking in your mind about how you approach virtual events. And the first key learning is that you should give yourself a virtual applause, that you should give yourself a pat on the back, because at this moment you're doing what is most important to increase your knowledge and skills about virtual and online meetings, and that is you are consuming one. And that is the thing you should do first. Eat your own dog food. Experience what it's like to sit in a home with kids and dogs running around, to sit in a home with perhaps noise, with people around you, to be alone behind a laptop. And what are we doing to keep you engaged, or what are we not doing? Reflect on this experience. Take notes. What do you like? What don't you like? What could you take away from this into your own meetings? And what would you like to improve in your own meetings? Because that is a really, really strong starting point to learn. In the meantime, I've also activated a little poll for our viewers on Facebook, because we're broadcasting this both live to Facebook as to the ICA World website. You can hit the link in the description and enter into the Slido application as well. Or you can pull out your mobile phone, go to slido.com and use the event code ICA Global Conversations. And you'll see a live poll where my first question is to: on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your current knowledge and experience of organizing online events? And I've just given you, and that's, I guess, why the most answered question at this point is about a 3 out of a 10, because obviously you cannot give yourself a 1 because you're experiencing an online event right now. So your first step in the learning journey is happening. We see an average score of about 5.1, but it's very well distributed with a very strong focus on a 3. And let's see how far we can get in the next 20-30 minutes to give you some ideas and learnings to get to that. I'll leave the poll open for a little bit, and I'll hint to something. A few slides. Slides, really? No, just a little thinking model. What do you need for an online event? Because in the last 2 weeks, just like Dalia mentioned, we've been seeing a lot of questions. People answer and email us, what tool do I need to go online? It seems to be that the tool is everything. But there's a little bit more to it. And once you understand that line of thinking, I hope it helps you also to put that tooling question into perspective. As spring is about to come about, little leaves are going up from the floor. It seems that nature isn't much affected by this COVID-19 crisis. And if at all affected, it seems that the skies are bluer, the water is cleaner. So some good is happening to that. But obviously, things are growing. And in this webinar, we'd like to grow your knowledge about online events. So that's why this little stem will get 4 leaves, the 4 building blocks of creating an online event. First one is a proper program design. I'll quickly hit the 4 leaves one by one because obviously there's little extra leaves to it. Second, there's no hierarchy or order to this, but a second building block is obviously the technology. A third building block is the online hosting, either on camera like myself or off camera. And a third building block is the communication. These are the 4 elements that you need to consider when virtualizing events. These are also typically kind of the 4 building blocks that you will see in any budget when considering online events. And if I quickly go through the leaves, the first leaf, program design, is very similar to anything you would create and design for an offline event. You start with your proper objectives. What are you trying to achieve with this meeting, whether it's virtual or offline? What is the key audience and what actions would you like them to take? Second element is then obviously the content, speakers, entertainment, debates, exchange, brainstorms, workshops, anything, listed all in there. And the third element is interactivity. And interactivity is actually quite different when you're dealing with online events, because opposed to an audience that's sitting in a conference venue in a seat, your virtual audience, like yourselves right now, have their fingers on their keyboard all the time, so they can come in either asked and unasked. And it's a great way also to keep people engaged. So from a program design perspective, you would create much more interactive events if you can, to keep your audience at stay. Let's go to the second leaf, and there we hit technology. And when we look at technology, there's 3 things to understand and consider. First step is obviously the capturing equipment. This could be, like in the case of Philippe and Annalisa and Dalia right now, just a laptop with a webcam and a microphone. Or in a setting that we are in right now, this could be cameras, microphones, lights and screens. or it can be as crazy as you can. There's choices to be made there, and these choices have an effect on your creative opportunities and possibilities, and the level of production quality that you're going to express to the outside world. So also here is a brand element that comes into play. Second part is then your choice of broadcasting platform. Where are you going to bring people together virtually? The very first step to consider, and let's not forget that could just be social media. We're right now live on Facebook. You can go live on YouTube at any time. So that's a free platform. The interactivity tools are right there. People can participate via live chat, and you're good to go. It automatically scales on mobile devices, on laptops. A lot of stuff is managed there. One of the drawbacks, of course, of going public on social media is, first of all, it is very public. You cannot see who's watching. You cannot capture data. You can definitely not sell tickets. And if you're hitting a global audience, you might run into trouble if you, for example, want to reach people in China. And that is why in this ICA online event, we're using a bespoke video live stream player and a bespoke content delivery network on the ICA website, so everybody across the globe can access this content. And then the third element in the technology corner is the interactivity tools. Like today, we're using Slido for you all to comment and react and chat with each other, to participate in polls. We're using Zoom as a platform for our virtual panelists to actually communicate face-to-face to us. And there's a whole array of interaction tools that you can use. Key thing to think about here, keep it simple. Don't think you're missing some kind of obscure tool that you're missing out on, because if you don't know about it right now, it's probably not a good choice, because people have to go through an enormous learning curve in order to participate with you. Third leaf on this little flower of online events is the online hosting. And there's three elements there. Obviously, it's good use to use some kind of a moderator, an on-camera host like I'm doing here today, that guides participants through the program, through the interactivity, through the content that they're getting. But secondly, you also want to consider off-camera hosts. Right now, we have a team of about, I think there's definitely 4 to 5 people who are monitoring the Facebook comments, who are monitoring our social media channels, who are looking after the Slido comments and replying if they can already. And a third element there is people who are involved with technical support, especially if you're scaling up your online meeting, especially if you're doing more complex things like virtual breakouts or virtual networking tools. You want to have people dedicated to helping those delegates that cannot find their way around, just like you would in any offline meeting as well. There would be hostess or support as well. And the final leaf, it's about communicating and promoting your virtual event, which is slightly different. A little bit the same as well. You still have to think about your messaging, about your channels, which are appropriate. Considering channels, don't forget offline channels, especially in this area where everything now is virtualizing. We're bombarded by emails, social media, WhatsApp messages, online events. Maybe sending a good old postcard, sending something physical, sending out a poster to a hospital where people are still working could work very well in order to get some attention for your online event. And a thing I want to point out is timing, where your traditional communication plan would focus on a 6 months prior save the date, or even a year out, a 3-month register now, early bird, late bird. For online events, you should not forget the last 24 hours or even the last 2 or 1 hour before you go live, because a lot of people might just come across this online event. They might not have blocked their calendar for you, but at least now they think, ooh, I might as well join in. Perhaps some of you are just here by the sake of coincidence coming across a post in your timeline. So with that, here's the full flower, and I realized this just looks like a very big slide with 12 bullet points, but then in circles. But take a snapshot. We'll share these slides on the ICA Knowledge Hub as well, so you can kind of structure your thinking when you go through your first online event project. I'd like to end this introduction with a very brief case, a very simple case, something that happened to us only last week. This was a national association who was getting ready for their 2-day educational event. This was accredited and paid for medical education. This was by nature a very interactive meeting, and luckily a very simple program. This was a one-track program, 8 speakers throughout the day. that would present for 20 minutes and then would have Q&A with the audience. Now, in this case, 4 days before the event took place, the board of this association decided they didn't trust or couldn't, so this was slightly before the full lockdown, they didn't want to have all these medical professionals together. They were looking at 500 delegates together in one room. So they decided to kick out all the chairs and instead put cameras in front of our speakers and create a 100% virtual event. For the first few hours, the delegates who now had to stay at home or in small groups in their offices responded somewhat disappointed. They were missing their fellow colleagues. They were missing, obviously, the networking breaks and the party that was a good tradition on the first night. But then as the hour progressed, the comments started to change. And actually, these professionals started to share what a great experience it was, how the value was still there, the educational value was there, the interactivity was still there, and all of a sudden they saw the benefit of not having to travel, having to stay in the safety of their own home and their own environment. Now, I realize this is a very small and simple case, but it's a starting point where you can say, if you have the fear, if online meetings can really replace or be a type of replacement for face-to-face meetings, yes, in certain areas they can. And we'll quickly learn from Annalisa in a minute on how to think about this more strategically, about all the different aspects of a large international meeting. Now, that as a first introduction into online meetings and how to think about it. Now, I'd first like to go to Philippe Riga. If you're just joining us, Philippe is the Executive Director of the European Association for Osseointegration. And Philippe, you have been trying to involve a virtual audience, both with your annual medical conference as well, but also recently more monthly in a 100% virtual environment as well. Can you share a little bit the story of what you and your association is doing and why?
Everything started something like 4 years ago, and we wanted to, the first idea was to address a wider community to with the scientific content, and not only people, delegates can come to the annual event. And as a response, the first idea was to make some session live, some session of the Congress live. So this is why we can consider it an hybrid Congress, because it could not be run at the moment, at that time, without having the Congress somewhere in a destination in Europe. And when we decided this, of course, at that time we were organizing some Facebook Live. We were using Facebook as a support. We were mentioning different support a few minutes ago. And during 2 years, we were just using these Facebook Live sessions. But to also come back to something you said, we really decided to have a very special design for those online sessions. And we could not have only one traditional lecture, which was in a room, just convert online and with people sitting behind their computers. What we had to decide first is what type of session should be chosen to be online also. You know that the audience, and especially the online audience, need to be cut from, it's more difficult to keep them behind the screen. And you need to find, I think that's the very traditional lectures, long lectures are exactly not what you can definitely put for an online session. You need more interactive session, you need more debate between speakers, and you also some kind of live surgery also was a good idea. And you need to choose the session where you will have many things happen at the same time on stage. You know, people, what you used to say is people are expecting blood on walls, and to keep the audience behind the computer, you need to make them wait for that. And instead of having only one session of 1 hour and a half online, of course, we decided, first of all, not to have all the Congress online, but to choose one session per day and to have a kind of rendezvous per day for the community who could not be with us in the Congress Center. And we wanted to add something to this community. I mean, we organized a pre-sessions before the online session live, a pre-session with introduction of the topics, invitation of experts talking about what could be discussed, and also a post-session with, in the studio, the speakers who could answer to the question of the online audience, so that the online feel part of the show. Interactivity is also a key word. So special topic, special speakers who are aware of this, special moderators, and of course, more than what you can just have on the traditional broadcast sessions. That were the keywords, the key elements who help us to decide how to launch this. And then 2 years after that, we decided to launch a YouTube channel, and we moved everything to the EO channel on YouTube. Facebook just stayed as to advert the online session. But it was a kind of rendezvous, and we were very happy because we could have a much broader audience coming from all over the world, and also from country where we were not used to have delegates to our Congress.
Exactly. So here are some learnings for, let's say, the next few years when we are able to gather again. You already point out, if you're going to virtualize sessions, big interactive sessions, engaging sessions, that also will be able to keep an audience to the screen. Now, you also organize these monthly expert Q&As. So this is a live Ask Me Anything session with an expert from your community. Can you share some of the responses that you get from members and non-members? What is the response of your community, in this case, implant dentists from around the world? What are you hearing and seeing?
So what we hear is that we see that this monthly rendezvous with experts and direct online questions on a very specific topic became a rendezvous for lots of members and non-members, because it's open to anyone. And we feel that probably more than 50–60% of the audience are the same every month. So it's nice to keep on having the same and deliver a message to the same audience every time. And you know why? I maybe say why we decided to have this kind of monthly rendezvous, a kind of session of 1 hour, talking with an expert on a specific topic, lots of questions from the audience. When we decided to open the YouTube channel, when we decided to launch this, we realized that we would need very different contents on the channel. There was a live session. Okay, we already have the live session with the Congress, from the Congress. You need to have what we call cold content, but you need to also have interactive rendezvous, and on a regular basis. So all together is the way to manage a link with your audience all the year long.
Yeah.
And this is why we had this monthly, exactly the first Monday of every month, this rendezvous.
All right, and in that way, you also train your audience, I guess, that there is a virtual component to your community as well. In the meantime, while you were talking, Patricia Pochelon posted a question. So does she understand correctly that you actually adjust the session format on site for when sessions are live casted? And if so, what should be considered? I think you commented it should be a lively, interactive session if can, and otherwise add extra elements either before or after it, right?
Yes, we didn't change that much what was on stage in the room for the during the Congress. You just have to make sure that this session, this topic, and the lectures and speakers debate will be could be interactive enough and could be as much as lots of exchange of ideas and very, I would say, the most controversial as possible.
Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing that story, Philippe. From the corner of my eye, I see a very practical question receiving a lot of likes from Patricia, saying, how long can a virtual event last? Have you a track record of the best duration and model? Well, let me answer that question for you, Patricia. There's no clear answer to that. I have been in sessions, for example, the monthly session with Philippe. We intend to go for 60 minutes. We always have to cut it off after 75 minutes, and there's still a ton of questions there. The case that I showed, the very simple event of the Dutch Medical Association, was for 2 days, 8 hours in a row. But hey, wait a second, these people paid for this, and this was accredited education. So they had a very big stake to stay tuned as well, and they were also kept very much informed. And this is a nice segue to our other panelist, Annalisa Ponkia, because Annalisa, you and I worked together on a project last October where we had a virtual event for 36 hours throughout the entire physical conference. We went live for 24 hours a day, 3 hours a day. Do we expect our audience to also be live for 36 hours? No, not at all. But that was an idea of service, just one URL, whenever you want to be part of the meeting, chip in. But I don't want to talk too much about that case with you, Annalisa. I want to talk to you about when I shared this case with you about the meeting last week. You said, well, Gerrit, it's all nice, but it's a very simplistic view of of an international association meeting, right? You're currently conducting some research into a broader scope. Can you share your thinking with us?
That is correct, Gerrit. And I'm glad that Philippe already talked about formats, because formats are an essential view and an essential way to consider how you want to go live, and especially virtual with your event. You also talk about content and the way you say content is design. And I would say meeting design and the meeting view design, when you go virtual, it has to be completely different when you are, of course, live, but also hybrid. It's a completely different concept. And I would say is the last one we are prepared to. I would say more or less we all have a large experience with hybrid events, fair enough. And this is already an asset for any of you who has been already conducting hybrid events, because at least you know all the technology parts, you have maybe your supplier, you have tested different formats, so you are prepared for that. Going virtual is again a totally different experience. I would say an adventure at this point. Why is so much of a hot topic? Is a hot topic because a lot of events that could not postpone or are planning to cancel the meeting are obviously considering the option to go virtual. So right now is the most difficult option because we have been planning for a live event and you have to jump into a virtual event, which is more complicated than really starting to plan a virtual event, which is something we will all consider in the future. But right now I see very little experience in this sense. So what you and I were talking about is for more complex events, we have 3 different components. I would say 3 major components to consider. One is the core science and content, what we normally call the invited speaker core program. And perhaps this is the easiest part to plan around because you can pre-record a number of sessions. You can by the way, I wouldn't consider even just to go live for 8 hours, and we were going live for 24 hours because actually we were putting in a loop a number of sessions so that from different parts of the world they could watch us. But even for 8 hours, I don't think you will never be able to capture the attention. So you want perhaps to consider other ways to dilute in a different time frame so many presentations. Medical meetings specifically, I have to say, differently from other sectors, have a massive amount of content that you would like to license. And it's almost impossible to do in the same way that you're doing in a live event. So this part is, as we say, the core of the program and the scientific program. And you can plan differently by diluting in a larger framework or trying to engage the audience with keynotes, panels, and all that kind of things. And I think that is possibly the most easy part. Why? Because it becomes relevant to everybody. Why do we have an audience connected today for 3 hours? Because all this is relevant to us. So the moment you have relevant content, you engage your audience, and of course you can add game and polls and survey, keep them connected, but I would say it's the easiest part. Don't forget that all these big events live also on a different contribution from abstract submitters and presenters. And that is very hard to reproduce in a virtual environment. So this is something that everybody has to consider in a different way. So perhaps to be able to keep the conversation, but also to showcase this huge amount of content and presentation, you have to consider different formats. E-posters, maybe the most kind of neglected type of presentation, will become very prominent at this point, because the e-posters can really be showcasing a large amount of content and researches, and can perhaps the right template to present many abstracts. They were not only just meant for e-poster. And the last very important component, and actually the one that really generates revenue, a good part of the revenue of all the largest events, is the industry, the presence of the industry. And the presence of the industry is into, we know, major situations. One is the corporate sessions, corporate and live symposia, so to say. And again, these are kind of easy to reproduce in a live streaming. So there's plenty of this example before, and you can still do it. And the exhibition. The exhibition is something that I'm exploring a lot in these days, because I realized that there are many virtual opportunities and platforms where you can really reorganize your exhibits in a virtual way. So this is all to summarize, I would say, what we discussed regarding the three major components of the event and solutions. And I'm sure, Daria, we talked then about the technical tool for this. There's plenty of solutions, and the more you explore, the more you find. But it's also the way we are kindly advising our clients and the organization we work for.
All right, thank you. And thank you for sharing that very structured thinking. So it's content, it's the exhibition, and it's the abstract-driven sessions and the e-posters that are the different elements that we need to consider. And perhaps, and don't forget a very important one, I see some questions about that as well. I guess it's kind of intertwined into these three solutions, but it's obviously the networking. How can we virtualize the networking that is going on? Let's hit it to Dalia. Dalia, what is your experience for the last 2 weeks or so? I saw a Facebook page of you that you're also very last minute virtualizing meetings. What can you share with us?
Well, I mean, obviously the hit on the face-to-face and on-site conferences came fast and furious for all of us, for many. And I just want to first say I commend our event professionals and our peers and colleagues that have pivoted very quickly, because this is not something that we're used to. We say we're used to it and we're planned, but not really. And so I'll give you an example, Gerrit, that a couple of weeks, actually last week, we get a huge medical association, and on Monday, they texted that they wanted to have a call Tuesday morning, and they had a virtual platform. They have never used it before. Went and bought a license for it. I'm not going to name the platform. And so that was Tuesday, was the call with the client. Wednesday was rehearsals with all the speakers, the board of directors, the staff, any stakeholder, obviously, of the program itself. And Thursday night was the event. And so that's how quick everybody is asked to act, basically. And so there were lessons learned, because they were planned for 5,000 to attend. They had 7,500 register, and they ended up with like more than 6,500 attend.
Yeah, and I see similar things happening here. So the moment you virtualize your event, your attendance all of a sudden grows. And you might say, well, because online is free. No, also in our case, this was a paid event. So they got more paid registrations for the online experience.
Yeah. And to go back to what Philippe and Annalisa shared, which is totally spot on. So there's a lot of lessons learned there that I hope, people can steal some of those ideas. I will say, truly, there is a lot of technology platforms out there, but you have to think of it last. And my bold statement, which is not a surprise because we've been talking about virtual events for more than a decade now, and it's unfortunate that it takes something as a deadly virus to get us to work creatively and get us to do what we do best. But virtual events and hybrid events are here to stay. So my ask of everyone on the event side, especially PCOs and even DMOs, we're in a spot right now where it's a golden opportunity that if we're not thinking creatively about the content we produce or about additional value add virtual or digital experiences where we are not only feeding and maintaining that relationships with our members or those that have been part of our events, but this is the time where you venture out to other audiences. So every single social media feed right now is a picture of a gallery view of Zoom, right? So you got to embrace that somehow. And if any industry is going to embrace it, it's going to be our industry, because we are the ones who are teaching all the other professionals in other industries how to do what we do best. Exactly. So that's my thing. The other thing is, it truly is about the content. So what Philippe was talking about and what Annalisa was talking about, just to piggyback on that, do not try to replicate your entire annual conference with your 1,200 exhibits and your sponsors and logo parades and try to push that in a virtual world, because that is not going to serve anyone. And what's going to happen is you're going to lose the audience. My opinion is, especially on the face-to-face side. So we're going through this. We're trying to salvage what we have with our face-to-face conferences. What's going to happen, and this is everybody's thinking about it, is you're going to see budgets slashed. You're going to see travel being reduced. More so than anything, this time that's spent from working from home, with being with family, with loved ones, younger, older, what have you, those are the components that you are now competing against. Meaning when the industry comes roaring back, your attendees, your event participants, your sponsors' dollars are going to compete where someone's going to tell them, you can now do 4 shows, you can't do 10 shows. So what are you going to do as us? We're the creators of content. We're the creators of experience. What are you going to do to fulfill that for them so that they are able to attend virtually? They are able to have those rendezvous. Philippe, I'm going to steal that word from you because I think it's fantastic. But I see wine in someone's hand with the rendezvous online. So I'm just saying, alcohol has to be served somehow. But this is where the interactivity comes in, and this is where the homework comes in, Gerrit. And you want people to post pictures of where they're at. I would like to see people post pictures of their bedrooms and what's happening behind them, not only of the screen, because that's where the riot comes in. Yeah, but this is where we get to be creative. Exactly. And then when you look at the content and you look at the experiences and you open that feedback loop, which is what you did with Slido, for example, and there's so many tools out there. Once you say, what do I want to get out of it? What do I want people to tell me about? How am I going to curate or create that content? Then think of the technology, but not the opposite, because I think right now people are just bogged down on, I just bought a Zoom license. I'm going to put 10,000 people on it. and everything's going to be fine. And guess what? Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And in the world is going to save you for that. So you got one chance to get it right.
It's nice. Alexander from Serbia is joining us. He commented already quite early in the show that for everything you want to know about the technical part, nothing has changed. Just go to your technical experts and professionals and they will sort this out for you. This is not new. Like you said yourself, we've been doing this for 10 years. So it's kind of funny. When you were thinking about your physical meeting, you weren't saying, I have a TV in my house, I have my laptop, shall I just do the stage production myself? But somehow this week, everybody wants to go and do it yourself and wants to go cheap and also get it sorted. So all the professionals are waiting for you.
Yeah, well, so here's my other thing, my other, and steal it, is, you know, for our team, but there's a lot of, this is the rise of what we call the event technologist. So if you do not have the expertise, and if you do not have the brain width internally in your team, try to go for an event technologist, someone who knows not only about the technologies that are out there, more so they have to know about the technology you have internally. They have to know what skill set you have internally, as well as what other workflows or processes that you need. So you need to have not only an event technologist on site with you, outsource it if you need to, but this is where you have the golden opportunity to create an incredible experience that you don't want people to have FOMO about it. This is going to be something that will be part of their agenda, part of their schedule. If you have a monthly rendezvous, that's going to be on their calendar. They will not want to miss it. So this is where the invention, the innovation comes in.
Yeah, and I think here's a nice thing to maybe open people's mind a bit. One of the discussions I've been having the last 2 weeks with all these people who want to virtualize their 3-day event with 1,200 speakers, remind yourself why you're doing 27 parallel tracks. It's because of the definition of a physical event, meaning it has to bring everybody in the same place in the same time. Now, the beauty of virtual is we don't have to be in the same place, which also creates a lot of opportunity for time. So why cram 1,200 speakers in 4 days? Why not stretch it over 4 weeks? And much easier, much more predictable, allow people to consume and come in whatever they want. Just an idea, but we are trained in a way of thinking everything needs to happen in 3 days, and that's our limitation. Obviously, those things fall apart. And another nice question I thought, where is it? I lost the name, but it was about, we talk about a lot about legacy for destinations of meetings. And the question was, what is the legacy of virtual meetings? And one of the things you might not realize is that obviously anything you do virtual is automatically recorded.
Right.
So all your content, all your brain power is there to stay for years, for new members, for future members, for students, whatever.
And to another point on that, Gerrit, you're spot on with that, is that right now, the name of the game will be the content. So meaning the content of this virtual gathering, as well as the content of Philippe's conferences, or the ones that Annalisa is now consulting on, for example, that automagically becomes part of your event marketing going forward. So your user-generated content, your speakers' content, behind-the-scenes content, now you're capturing it in different ways. You can play more with it. And that's what's going to make more associations, more organizations, and more events just shine over others. So I would say technology last, but there's another thing that we keep harping on, we keep talking about, and now's the time to really focus on how we're going to do it. PCMA, like years ago, Carolyn Clark with Deborah Sexton had started out research where they were tracking one attendee across virtual events as well as face-to-face, and tracking how much revenue they were able to get from one attendee. So we keep talking about virtual, that was 10 years ago. We kept talking about data analytics, that was a century ago. So now is the time to perfect, how are you going to track the attendees when they are consuming your content, whether face-to-face, whether in a rendezvous with a glass of wine, or whether in a virtual setting, or how many networking or matchmaking or appointments that you do virtually or face-to-face, that you're going to have to put all these data analytics, and someone has to figure out how to do that really, really well.
Exactly.
However, Dalia, if I might say, it's much easier to track people online than people live.
Perfect.
So that's one thing. And the second is that I would like to invite everybody to rethink about the business model, because we all know that this meeting all make revenue. So it looks like very nice. We're going online. It's easy, but collecting fees is going to be a different ball game, completely different. And we all have to rethink about how is the value proposition of an organization, what's the value of a registration fee to any virtual event.
And membership fees.
And membership fees. But of course, you can monetize and capitalize all your recorded content. So it will be a new era for education platform. And everybody will consider how to use the assets that they will eventually have all of a sudden. And they really have to make the best way to create a new return on investment.
Perfect.
Well, this session unfolds quite naturally. We're nearing the end already, and this was my closing question, actually. We see quite some comments about how we're ever going to generate revenue with these new virtual events. Well, Annalisa, you just gave a good little insight into that. Philippe, how do you comment on that? How do you say, how do you see your virtual efforts being beneficial for your association?
Our position was to provide everything for free when it comes to the online content. For the main reason was that we wanted to have a larger audience. So it's a windows open to the association, and we consider it as an investment at the moment. Probably in the next few years, when we will move to different format of online event, we may decide to have something different. But at the moment, everything is for free and it's investment, and we see that we have more members in a way, and also some sponsors are really interested about what we are doing online. And has many associations, we are most of our revenues are coming from the sponsors from the Congress. So we need to think about this before charging additional fees to members or to delegates or to participants to an online session. That was our position for the moment.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Philippe, and thank you for taking the time to join us here today. Thank you very much, Annalisa Ponchia from Italy. We're very glad to see you in good health, and thank you for sharing your great insights. And also to you, Dalia, I see a ton of fun questions that I'm really eager to start answering right now, but we have a format and we have a timing. So, Dalia, I think you and I should jump on back later or see how we can deal with this. As I promised at the beginning of this session, this is just to get our toes in. We're not going to pretend that we can answer all your questions, but hopefully you've seen some examples. Obviously, we'll share all this to the ICA Knowledge Hub as well. But before I get back to you, Senthil, and I see you're back on the panel already, I want to see if one of my cameramen could actually jump on the camera, and we'll reveal one question that we see all the time. Show us a little bit behind the scenes how you're producing this online event and why. And I already shared, we're broadcasting this to both the ICA World website through a bespoke live stream player, so it can be accessed to everybody around the world. We're using Slido as an interactivity tool. Why? Because it's already used in many ICA offline events, so people know it, and it's very easy to use. You can use it as a second screen. You can use it on your laptop. So that's one reason to choose for that one. And thirdly, we decided not to go in a very 100% Zoom. We're bringing in our speakers and our virtual panelists over Zoom. But as you can see, I'm here in the ICA meeting room in the ICA head office with 3 of my colleagues, the maximum number to be in a room currently in the Netherlands. We have 3 cameras here. We have the big major screen where I'm talking to my panelists as well, in order to at least to give you a little bit more of an experience than just looking at a recorded Zoom recording. So that's a little bit behind the scenes from how we're doing this at ICA here today. And with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Senthil, for your closing reflections on this first ever interactive online webinar for ICA, this global conversation on our current challenges.
Thank you, Gerard. A sincere thanks to all of you, particularly the panelists from today. Now we have panelists Philip and Dalia, and of course the other panelists in the first two sessions. It's so amazing to note and so refreshing. We all are working from home, but this how quickly we bring our community together, and how quickly we all share our thoughts, share best practices, try to help each other. This is what all about the ICA family. So great to know that, and my sincere thanks to all the members who are joined globally from many different countries, different time zones. They're all eager for knowledge, and most importantly, they all want to be part of ICA. And that's what ICA is all about, a global community, truly global community, I should say. And we are here to support you. Many webinars to come forward, sharing various knowledges. Yes, we know we all on lockdowns, but that doesn't prevent us from learning, sharing, throwing our ideas on the table so each one of us will learn during this time. And then we'll be ready when the recovery is done to work together, collaborate, communicate. So thank you, everybody. Stay strong and healthy. Good wish to you, your family, and to your team in your offices. Looking forward to another webinar soon. Thank you very much for joining.
Well, thank you, Senthil. And this is the final time for our audience, if you're still with us, to head over to Slido and fill out not only your key learnings from this session, like we did with the others, but I've also added quickly some extra questions about how you would rate this online event for ICA, what you really liked about it. That is also an important reflection for your own learning about online events. Perhaps some ideas to improve. And there's a free field there to let us know any comment or saying that you would like to shout out to the ICA team, the ICA events team, the total ICA team here in the office or virtually around us. And if you haven't done so, please, like Dalia asked before, and I asked you before, we would love to see where you are right now, what it looks like around you. We've showed our behind the scenes. Now take that camera, snap a picture, and share it with hashtag ICA Global Conversations. Hit it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere you can, and perhaps share some of the key learnings that you have from this afternoon as well with us.
Don't be afraid of the dirty laundry. I'm just letting you know. Don't be afraid of that.
Thank you for that, Dalia. Now, if you maybe you have missed either the first or the second block, or you just landed late in this third block, rest assured that the recordings of this online event will be published to the ICA Knowledge Hub. If you want to know where that is, go to icaworld.org, hit the big menu button Knowledge, and there you will find everything you need to know. And keep tracking this COVID-19 page for the latest insights and developments that ICA is finding and publishing on the COVID-19 developments. Not so much on the disease and the crisis itself, but definitely about what it means for the international association meetings industry as we are, what it means to our ICA family, and all the great initiatives that we see and hear about to embrace each other in these difficult times and come out together stronger. This is it for this afternoon. My name is Gerrit Heijkoop. It was a great honor to be your host here today. And I'm looking forward to see you at one of our future online or offline events.